So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to your Edcover webinar. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Anthony McBride. I'll be your host for the next 25 minutes. I'm absolutely delighted that so many of you could join us this afternoon. Delighted too that Pete Ingalls has been able to join us. Pete's from M4L Solutions, and thanks to Pete for arranging the meeting today as well. I've worked with Pete historically on a number of education products and projects, so it's great to meet with him again today. A little bit of housekeeping for everyone. You'll notice that you're all muted at the moment, but please believe me, we do welcome your questions throughout the session. You can submit these, and there's a chat also. So you've got two options at the bottom right of your screen. You can submit questions throughout the session. We'll collate these as we go along, and I'll do my very best to answer any questions at the end, if that's okay. For my part, I plan to be as succinct as possible. I'm really aware that you've all had a tough day in school, probably, and looking forward to your evening. And it should be quite straightforward, the next 25 minutes, because most of what I want to say is shaped by experiences that most or all of us will have in common. During this webinar this afternoon, I will give you a really brief whistle-stop tour of the Edcover platform. Apologies in advance if it's a little bit too small for you. You can see it again in the future, should you wish. But I would also like to say at the outset, and I will remind you towards the end, that by virtue of your attendance today, would like to offer you a free 1-month trial of the Edcover platform, should you like what you see. And I'm also conscious that we're joined by some schools already using Edcover. A great big warm welcome to you as well. I hope you found the session useful too. So before we get into all of that detail, I'd like to just very, very quickly give you some background as to who we are and the rationale that led us to create Edcover. So our organisation, based up here in South Yorkshire, we support schools right across the country with a number of education projects, but we've got a real proud history of creating some groundbreaking software solutions for schools. Take the Haskell Data Toolkit, for example. That was a massive help to secondary schools during the pandemic as they processed their CAGs and their tags. It seems like a long while ago now, doesn't it? So that's us. Now, as former leaders in secondary schools themselves, the directors at Edcover, they were all too familiar with the negative connotation, the negative association between cover lessons and learning. And indeed, for me, there's lots of evidence, anecdotal and otherwise, to confirm what for me is a pretty logical hypothesis. When the regular class teacher is not present, learning and progress suffer, or will often suffer. And those of us that have been in school for years will probably be familiar with that scenario. Now, some of the factors contributing to this negative trend, they're here on the right-hand side, but of course, none of these can be considered in isolation. So behaviour, for example, when we talk to schools, they'll often concede that by and large, during cover lessons, they'll see a deterioration in behaviour. Not all the time, but most of the time. And for me, this is inextricably linked to the second point there, the quality of work set. Now, as educators, we all know that children will behave well when they're in a lesson worth behaving for. Also, I've been on that, as many of you will have been. I've been in that situation where I'm stood at the front of a class covering a lesson for a colleague, and the work's been substandard, and that's not fair on that member of staff. The next point that I've picked out that I think contributes to all of this is subject knowledge, but actually on reflection today I was thinking it doesn't have to be an issue, particularly if you're just covering a one-off lesson in a subject outside your specialism. I mean, personally, I used to quite enjoy it, covering a lesson in another subject, providing, and this is huge, providing that the quality of the work that's been left for those children is stimulating and it's going to lead to a worthwhile learning experience for me and them. Next, Consistency. Now, again, this relates to the points above, I think. If your pupils know that when they've got a cover lesson, when they go into that classroom or wherever it is, the cover room, that's going to be a good, worthwhile use of their time, then they will enter into it in the right mindset and they'll come to expect that. So that's the consistency that we're all striving for, perhaps. And finally, I've got succession. And what I'm, I suppose, referring to there is the communication, or rather lack of it, between the covering staff member and the absent teacher. And historically, let's be honest, it doesn't really happen unless there's an issue, a negative issue, something bad's happened in that lesson. And that's fully understandable because we're too busy. We've got so much going on. But if we really stop to consider this point, I think it's really important. It's really important that the regular class teacher knows how that class has progressed. Have there been any misconceptions, etc., etc.? Where do I pick up with this class? So that was our challenge. We were determined to create a solution to actively deal with all of this, combat it all. And the challenge was to do that while trying to simultaneously ease the burden on teachers, make things easier, more streamlined for our teachers, as well as making life better for cover managers. Because one thing I've learned in this project is that the role of cover manager in a secondary school can be very, very stressful. So at the outset, we collaborated with a number of secondary schools to help shape Edcover. And the result, I think, is a really, really modern one-stop solution. It optimizes learning, it promotes dialogue rather, and for leadership teams, it gives you a really clear insight into the efficacy of cover lessons in your school and whatever it is you want to find out about what's happening in those cover lessons. And we'll have a little bit more of a detailed look at that later. So again, for me, it's really important that we do whatever we can to get this right. It's crucial, in fact, that we do what we can to get this right. Because if we consider, typically, a secondary school pupil, about, 4% of their learning in any given year will be delivered through what we often refer to as cover. So this is all about doing whatever we can to make that experience as worthwhile, make the learning as deep and as worthwhile as possible. We think we've got it right. We're delighted that our customers, our schools that we work with and collaborate with, they think we've got it right and they've told us so. They think we're making a really significant contribution to their drive for excellence, their drive for school improvement. And they also tell us that we're helping to ease the workload burden on staff. So I've just picked out two schools today that I'd like to focus on just briefly. Lisbury High School. I remember when they, just like you guys, they were offered a 1-month free trial of Edcover. They availed of that opportunity and they decided to just trial it with 3 departments, so not whole school. But very quickly, the feedback from those 3 departments was outstanding. So they rolled it out to all staff, tremendously happy with it. But the thing that makes me really, really happy about this case study is the sentence I've picked out there. We found a notable improvement in the quality of work set for cover lessons. And that for me encapsulates what we're trying to do. And they noticed it pretty quickly, by the way, within 2 or 3 weeks. So that was particularly satisfying. And of course, there are all kind of knock-on effects: improved discipline, deeper engagement and learning from pupils within cover lessons too. Similarly, Hathershaw College, up in the northwest, they told us that Edcover completely revolutionized the way that cover work is delivered. And the sentence I've picked out for them is that teachers find it so easy now to set their cover work, and the cover managers love it even more. So that was, again, wonderful to hear. So what I'd like to do next, folks, is give you a quick tour. I'm not going to show you everything, but a quick tour of the Edcover platform. Hopefully, what I'm trying to do is demonstrate to you how easy it could be to improve all aspects of cover within your school. And as I say, if you like what you see, would like to offer you that free trial, and so you can see the benefits for yourself basically in your school setting. So what I'm going to do now is going to change your screen. I'll nip over to the Edcover website. I'll just let you know that's there and signpost the Edcover website to you. There's a little bit of the rationale behind what we do there and so on and so forth, but we won't spend any time there at the moment. The case studies, etc., that you can have a look at there too. But what I want to do is actually log in to the Edcover platform as if I was a teacher in your school. So here we are. So I'm going to log in as a basic user. And part of the beauty of Edcover is that it syncs with your MIS. So it automatically pulls through all your staff timetables, all your class lists and things like that. But what I'm going to do first of all is just log in as a teacher. So of course, you know, there might be various reasons why I'm off. It might be planned. It might be that I'm sick. But I would know that if I'm off, this is how I do my cover. Okay. And when I log in, it's very plain, very simple. There's only two things that I can do. I can set my cover work here with the green button, or if I happen to be covering for a colleague, I would find the lesson here as well. Let's do the logical thing first and set some cover work. So if I click the green button, it pulls up all the staff because it syncs with your MIS. I'd be at the top, but of course it might be the case that I've got to set some work for somebody else. So let's say Brenda here, she's in my department, she's too poorly to set her own work, so I'm going to do it for her. Okay, so automatically what it does is, you'll see it pulls out her 4 lessons for today from whatever MIS that you use. Of course, if Brenda were doing this herself, and let's say, I don't know, it might be that she's on a year 8 residential next week from there to there. So it would go away and find the, 13 lessons that she's got to set cover work for. And anyone that's ever set cover work will know that's going to take a long time if we do it in the traditional way. But let's leave it on today. Got 4 lessons that we need to sort out to set cover work for. So if we go to the next screen, you'll see that, again, it's very plain, very simple and intuitive. These red buttons here, they say work not set, work not set, work not set. So we need to do something about that, change the color and get it to say sorted, work set. So the way in which we do that is click this button at the bottom, add cover work. So we'll start with the first one, that's logical. And if we do that, it brings you to this screen, which we've given you a kind of a lesson pro forma there, but you don't have to use that. You could get rid of that altogether and just have a blank screen, as some teachers prefer. Or it might be that you want a branded school pro forma to be uploaded there. Again, we do that for lots of schools as well. But if Brenda were doing this herself, of course, the chances are she's got a lesson pre-prepared that she can just drop in here and she can make it look lovely with all these buttons across the top. Increasingly, schools say, please drop your seating plan in there as well and any supporting materials. But we're not going to do any of that because, you know, it's pretty self-explanatory. I'm setting work for Brenda. She's too poorly to do it for herself. So to save me time, I'm going to use this button on the top right. It says AI Assistant. Okay. So what is she? She's a science teacher. My background's RE, so I'm not going to attempt to do a science lesson, but I'll do something RE based. Let's say I'll ask it to create a year 9 lesson. Just think of something off the top of my head. And by the way, if anybody wants to have a play with this and suggest other lessons that we can create, be my guest on, let's say, St. Thomas Aquinas's Just War Theory. It's quite topical at the moment. You see as well how bad my typing is. Create a year 9 lesson on Aquinas's Just War Theory. And if I click the button here, that will go away to another one of our projects, My School AI, and it will create my lesson. Now, of course, this uses AI, but the beauty of it is that all the prompts are done for your teachers. So we don't have to worry about inaccuracies or anything inappropriate. And you don't need to know how to use AI either. It's just a very intuitive tool. So I quickly check everything down the right hand side. It goes away and finds me some lovely YouTube videos that I could use to support the lesson as well. And I'm always blown away by the quality of what it finds for me. If I want to add a quiz, I just tell it to add a quiz or whatever. But I'm going to take that and stick it all over here. And I've got my cover lesson. In fact, I wouldn't use 3 videos. I would definitely, I'm definitely going to use the one at the top. Where's that? I'll use the one at the top, but I'll get rid of that one. We don't want 3. I'll get rid of that one. And then any quiz that you've got would just adjust to the video if you're going to use the video. So in a few seconds, I've got myself a brilliant cover lesson. As I say, you can have a play with this yourself, that a non-specialist can deliver, because that's one of the prompts as well. And if we go back to our previous screen, we can see now that that work is set. That cover lesson is sorted. And we've got 3 more to do. So massive, massive time saver, whether you're setting cover work for yourself or whether you're setting cover work for a colleague. Okay. So the flip side of that is I'm covering this lesson. How do I find it? Well, I could log out, log back in again, but that doesn't make much sense. So I'll just click on the blue button here. Again, I could find Brenda on the drop down, or just click here. I know that I'm covering this lesson here, period 1. So I'll click on the lesson and it's here for me. I can deliver it from the board. And again, one of the beautiful things is that because it links to your syncs with your MIS, I've got my pupils here. And if I'm a permanent member of staff, I can indeed see information like who's SEN, etc., EAL. If it was an external supply teacher coming in, they'd just have that pupil list and not any sensitive information. Okay. Incidentally, on that, a lot of schools, when they have got external supply in, they like to download it as a PDF and print it off as well. You can do that and give it to them and leave it on the desk or whatever. But the idea is trying to move away from paper wherever possible. So it's a great cover lesson. So I deliver it. Discipline's good because children are engaged. And for me, towards the end, one of the most important parts of what we do at Edcover is that thing I mentioned earlier on, succession. What communication is there between the 2 teachers? Usually none, but if it takes me 3 or 4 seconds, I can very quickly answer the questions, whatever questions you want to ask as a school about what's happening in those cover lessons. And if I want to, I can contact Brenda as well. I can send her an email. It might be that I want to suggest she revisits something with a particular pupil, whatever. Okay. So when I'm happy with that, I just click feedback, submit rather, and that goes to Brenda, assuming she's not off with stress or something like that, in which case we don't want to get any communications from Edcover. And I'll show you a very, very clever thing that happens with these star ratings in a moment. But essentially, folks, that's it. In terms of setting a cover lesson and accessing it, we've just done it all. And it's very, very intuitive. And 5-10 minutes, staff know what they're doing with it. Now, I'm in teacher mode at the minute. What I'm going to do now is switch to someone with admin rights. So that might be you or members of SLT or whoever you deem has admin in school. So if I do that, we can do everything that we've just done, set cover work and search for it, but we've got some other things we can do across the top. So for example, those feedback questions that we answered at the bottom of at the end of delivering the lesson, that feeds into your analytics. So as I said earlier, whatever questions you are asking as a school, I've just given you 2 examples, attitude to learning and how well was the work completed, but you could ask whatever you like, behavior, etc., etc. All that data is collated for you. So you can say to governors, to inspectors, to yourselves, as an SLT, as a school, we take what happens in a cover lesson seriously. Here's the evidence. We're improving. So, you know, things like percentage of cover work set, of course, that should be 100% all the time, but you can have a look at that. You can even have a look at analytics in terms of individual teachers. So here's Brenda. I set the cover work for, and this was last year, all the time she was off, how the lessons were rated, etc. Now, I did mention that, of course, Brenda might be off with stress or something like that for a few months, in which case we would switch notifications off for her, or you would, and when she comes back, we could just switch them on again. And from here, you can manage all your users. You could, you know, if you've got a supply teacher in for the day, you could create a guest account for them there. If you've got multiple supply teachers in, you just create a guest account for them. Also here, you've got pretty much everything you need to deliver Edcover, but we are always on the end of the phone. We really pride ourselves on the support that we give schools, but essentially teachers have got to watch this video and this video, total of 3.5 minutes, and then they know what they're doing. And those people with admin rights would want to watch the analytics video as well. But there's all kinds of guides as well that schools like to dish out. Now, I sometimes forget to show this, and I shouldn't. If we click on manage cover, this is brilliant if you're a cover manager or that person responsible for overseeing the running of cover in school. When we click on this, I can see every morning down the left-hand side all the cover lessons. And if they're not green, there's something that needs to be done. There's no work set, no work set, no work set. Okay. But as soon as that's all green, I know I'm good for the day. Also, any cover lesson that's ever created in your school will be stored as a resource. So this becomes a really rich bank of great cover lessons over time. So they're all stored in there. So, you know, if I need a great lesson, a year 8 lesson on Passover, I could just search for that and it'll go and find me one. I could choose a 5-star rated one that's been banked for me in you know, sometime in the past. So there might be one or two other things I could show you, but really and truly, it's very, very simple and intuitive. So I think I've covered most of what I wanted to show you there. And again, apologies if it's a little bit small. If we met individually, you know, you perhaps see it a little bit better. But if you like what you've seen there in any way, shape or form, please do take advantage of that free 1-month trial. There are various ways of kind of sorting that out. We'll give you some contact details at the end, but you can just very simply in the chat on this meeting, let us know that you would like to avail of that, take advantage of that trial, and rest assured it's no work for you whatsoever. Our guys do the setup, do the sync with your head of IT, and suddenly in about 24 hours you're live and you can have a play with it and, you know, start a trial with 1 or 2, 3 departments if you wish. So hopefully that will be really, really beneficial. So what am I going to do next? I'm going back to my PowerPoint, and we've done the platform. I'm going to try and be true to my word and keep this to 25 minutes. So with that in mind, the last thing to do is really thank you all for joining us. I know your time is very, very precious, so we really appreciate it. Thanks once again to Pete Ingalls. Again, you can let us know that you want to take advantage of the trial in the chat, or you can also contact us here. These are our contact details. And I know that Peter Ingalls will also be following it up with you tomorrow via email for a little bit of feedback. But yes, thank you very, very much. And we do hope to be speaking with you very, very shortly. And hopefully you'll be able to see the benefits of Edcover for yourself. Let me just, before we end, address the questions that have come in. So we've got several people, thankfully, liking what they've seen or wanting to take the free trial. So we'll get that set up. As I say, please don't think it's going to be any work for you. It's not. I've got a question here that says we use our MIS's Arbor. Does Edcover sync with Arbor? Yes, it does. I know there's a growing number of MISs. We've worked very, very hard to make sure we sync with them all. So it won't be a problem whether you're with, you know, it might be the more traditional ones like Sims, Arbor, so on and so forth. But you know, we've got lots of others now, haven't we? Bromcom, iSAMs, etc., etc. So, we've got another question here. Are schools in the process of moving from Sims to Bromcom? Will this work? Absolutely, yes. That won't be a problem whatsoever, and you wouldn't even know that the change in terms of how Edcover works. You wouldn't even recognise that there's been a change in MIS. Let me just check. We've got some more. Yes, costs, very, very transparent. So there is a trust discount, but for individual schools, the cost of Edcover is an annual subscription. We don't tie anybody in for more than a year, unless they want to. So the annual subscription is $2,995. But again, we can send you all that information. And considering this is a piece of software that during the course of the year, all your staff members are likely to use, we think that's, and it's going to be used on a daily basis, we think that represents really good value for money. So hopefully you agree on that. Yes, James, thank you for joining us. Even you got waylaid, James, as did some other colleagues. We have recorded the meeting. We'll share it with you, James. And I know that there are several absentees that would like it sending as well. So we'll get the recording sent over. If not tonight, then very first thing in the morning. And I think that's it. So once again, from me, Anthony McBride at Edcover, thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.